So what's happening with the stock market, right? The market started going down in October. You kind of thought, well, maybe it's going to come back, maybe it's going to bounce back. Then it keeps going down. December was the worst, one of the worst months. Now I'm going to go through and talk about some facts, some numbers, and these are, the intention here is to be able to give you information on what does this mean to you. The intention is not to go back and say, no, it's not, George, it was 0.2%, you said it was 0.3%. The general idea of how this applies and what's happening in the current economy, and most importantly, what it has to do with your situation. We talk about the headlines, and what the headlines say is 2018 was the worst year since 2008. The fact, though, is the market, the Dow Jones was down just a little over 5%, the S&P was down a little over 6%, and the NASDAQ was down 4%. So the worst year in the last 10 years is down less than 10%. So what does that mean? Being down off 20% off the high when this was recorded, the market was 20% below, when I say market, the S&P 500, where the high was, saying it's the worst performance, saying the Dow Jones was down 1,000 points. It's all kind of relative. And I want to be able to bring a little bit of clarity to this. The important thing is, what does that do? And I will say this almost every single time. So you've probably heard me say this many times before. The real question is always, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with my situation? What does this have to do with my needs? What does this have to do with my desires? What does this have to do with my preferences? I will tell you, based on experience, when people start going through this and actually experiencing an investment that they thought was going to be a fantastic one, like General Electric. If you bought General Electric 3 or 4 years ago, knowing it's a good company, it's on the Dow, it's a good dividend-paying stock, it's gone down almost 50% in 2017, almost 50% in 2018, reduced its dividends, it's no longer on the Dow, and you think, oh my gosh, if GE, the company that we bring good things to light, if that company's struggling, what does that mean for the economy? What does that mean for the world system? What does that mean for all of these other things? And I just want to encourage you to ask the question, unless you're an employee of GE or unless you have 30% of your stock at General Electric, the real question should always be, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with my own situation? And FundMax, what we're doing and how we're bringing information to you is to, just as it says, maximize your financial resources in retirement, giving you the ammunition to ask the right questions. And I always say, I don't want to be a headliner. I don't want to be giving you news that's just creating a bunch of chaos or of drama. I want it to be news that you can use. The real question, what does this have to do with me? If you're concerned about what's happening with the stock market, you should be talking to someone. You should be evaluating what you're doing in your own portfolio, in your own plan. If you're not concerned, you're thinking, hey, I'm buying on sale right now, then you should be doing that. But bringing in awareness. With our topics that we're bringing up, if it's not worth sharing, I believe it's not worth saying. And in this economy, I'm not attempting to try to bring comfort and try to say, well, what do you think the stock market's going to do? Well, I think it's going to do this, or I think it should do this. I will not be the person that at the end of the day says, you know why the stock market did that is because XYZ country did this and they started this and that's why the market went down today. I will never do that, because you can always look at history and say, well, it did it because of this. But no one says at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time in the morning, today the stock market's going to do this because of this country starting this thing, starting this, so this is how the stock market's going to close today. You never hear that from anyone, right? The number one question I encourage you to ask is, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with my own confidence, in my own plan, what I like to call your solution strategy to be able to get what you expect over time, and when you look back, avoid regret. If it's not worth sharing, it's not worth saying. I'm going to be sending you some additional emails on how to break down, how to know if you're on track, if you're missing something, if you should be tending to something. There's different types of investments that give you different types of benefits and attributes, and there's some investments that you never know. You never know what it is that you're going to get. My name is George Wells. Until we meet again.